The Empire mocked one human ship, then everything changed. The central power grid inside Command Tower Ethelgard died without a single click. High Provost Xyler stepped toward the glass platform, his optical processors pulsing amber as the ambient indicators went completely dark. No warning, no engine trails, no response from the line. Outside the massive view screen, the primary shipyards of the Valari sovereign sat frozen under the pale light of an artificial sun. Then, a synchronized mechanical roar vibrated through the floorboards. 1,200 automated dreadnoughts cut their propulsion trails in unison, their sleek gray hulls drifting into a massive circle around the station. The capital warships rotated their primary weapon batteries exactly 180 degrees, locking their targeting vectors directly onto their own high provost. Across the completely locked systems, the main interface flashed awake, revealing a human woman in a charcoal dress uniform who sat calmly at a bare desk. Would you have answered their silence, or would you have watched the border? Because the real threat wasn't outside their walls. Stay close. 8 winters earlier, the space lanes of Sector 4 were completely clear of human interference. High Provost Xyler sat in the same command chair, slowly rotating the crystal signet ring on his lower left digit as he reviewed the local transit logs. A minor telemetry alert flared on his terminal, flagging a sluggish mineral collector tracking slowly across the Imperial lane. The uncrewed vessel carried the registration name Gideon 4. Xyler did not look at the view screen with anger. He looked at it with the mild boredom of an official clearing dust from a marble desk. To an empire that had automated its dominance over 4,000 years, the primitive vessel was not a political challenge. It was physical litter. "The vessel carries 0 life signatures," Subcommander Valen said, his upper 4 limbs tapping rapidly against a secondary diagnostic board. "It is an unshielded human logistics hull. They are anchoring inside the primary transit path to calibrate a sublight drive." Xyler touched the primary interface, his crystal ring clicking against the smooth glass. "The Sector 4 Accord applies to recognized interstellar sovereign states. These humans do not register on our scales. Clear the lane." Valen entered the authorization key, and the tower's low-yield thermal lance fired a single targeted burst into the dark. The beam caught Gideon 4 squarely across its main storage bay, turning the unshielded freighter into a brief cloud of expanding titanium vapor. Xyler logged the incident as routine debris clearance, filed the report under the lowest automated tier, and closed the file. He expected a standard diplomatic protest, or perhaps a clumsy deployment of border scouts. The Valari military algorithm had already calculated 40 separate variations of a human counter-response, each ending in the systematic pacification of their local sectors. But humanity did not protest. They did not send a single message. Instead, they initiated 8 full years of absolute diplomatic and military silence. By the 3rd winter, the silence began to take a physical shape along the border markers of Vector 11 Delta. Small, boxy human logistics craft began appearing near the edge of the Imperial grid. They did not carry weapons, and they did not alter their courses when the Valari automated beacons flashed warning signals across the hyperlanes. They simply drifted along the boundary, their low-yield sensors active, waiting for the Empire to notice them. Subcommander Valen watched the first 5 freighters arrive on his tracking display. They are sending more logistics hulls into the outer vector. They are ignoring the safety distance, but they are not crossing the marker. Xyler did not look up from his tactical ledger. "They are testing our patience with minor cargo runs. Let the automated patrol ships handle them according to the standing protocol." The automated border arrays followed their ancient programming perfectly. Whenever a human hull crossed into the scanning perimeter, a high-intensity compliance ping shot from the Valari outposts, hitting the human vessels with a heavy burst of diagnostic radiation to disable their navigational arrays. The human ships would lose power, drift back into neutral space, and slowly limp toward their home systems without firing a single shot. Xyler watched the automated logs grow week by week, satisfied that the lesser species was learning the cost of proximity. By the fifth winter, the number of intercepted human ships reached dozens. The runs became rhythmic, almost mechanical in their repetition. Every month, another group of unshielded cargo freighters would approach Vector 11 Delta, accept the heavy diagnostic scans from the Imperial outposts, and retreat into the dark after their systems were temporarily disabled. The Valari algorithm registered these encounters as successful defensive iterations, noting zero increase in human tactical readiness. Xyler considered the matter entirely settled, completely unaware that the ancient automated hegemony was repeating the same action against an enemy that did not think in iterations. On the 8th anniversary of the clearance of Gideon 4, Valen initiated a routine network audit to prepare for the seasonal fleet rotation. The Central Core was processing the telemetry data from the latest border interceptions when the diagnostic terminal began to lag. A single line of foreign code appeared at the bottom of the system directory, disappearing before the security parameters could isolate it. Valen reset the terminal, his slate-gray carapace flesh tightening as he forced a deeper memory purge. "The main core is executing an unscheduled data sync," Valen said, his voice dropping as he bypassed the primary security firewalls. "The border outposts are reporting a continuous outbound stream from our own defensive databases." Xyler straightened in his chair, his optical processors widening. "Isolate the outposts, cut the external lines." "The system is rejecting the command," Valen said. He struck the physical override switch with two limbs simultaneously, but the interface remained bright. "The outposts aren't failing. They are broadcasting. Every time we scanned those human ships over the last 8 years, our arrays didn't just dump radiation into their hulls. Their hulls dumped data into our sensors." Xyler stepped toward the secondary console, his hand hovering over the emergency broadcast system. "Explain the payload." "It is a self-assembling data tether," Valen whispered, his amber optics flashing wildly as rows of Imperial data transformed into human text characters. 412 freighters. We scanned 412 separate bait vessels, and every single scan pulled a tiny piece of an adaptive software program into our core. They didn't lose those ships. We used them to map your wiring. The realization hit the command deck like a physical blow. The Empire had spent 8 years recording victories against a passive enemy, never realizing that each encounter was a calculated injection. Project Faultline had reached 100% network saturation, while the Valari algorithm was still classifying humanity as a minor logistical anomaly. Xyler reached for his internal comms link to alert the orbital shipyards, but the panel under his hand went completely cold. The ambient lights in the Imperial Command Tower dropped to pitch black as 1,200 automated dreadnoughts cut their propulsion trails in unison. Outside the windows, the massive warships floated in absolute silence, their dark hulls forming a perfect ring around the station. With a massive, synchronized mechanical roar, every capital warship rotated its primary weapon batteries 180 degrees, locking their targeting vectors directly onto the glass platform where Xyler stood. The main mainframe screen forced a high encryption override, flashing awake with a steady, white light that illuminated the darkened bridge. Admiral Elena Chen appeared on the display, wearing a perfectly pressed charcoal dress uniform. She held a generic gray ceramic mug in her right hand, taking a small, unhurried sip before she looked directly into Xyler's optical processors. She spoke with zero rage, her voice level and entirely flat. "Your automated networks have been running our diagnostic software for 42 months, Chen said. "We know the cooling loops on your capital ships. We know the navigation firewalls in your central tower. Humanity does not send armies. Humanity sends something worse. We send a bill." Xyler gripped the edge of the console, his lower left digit trembling against the unpowered metal. This is an act of unprovoked aggression. The Valeri sovereign will dismantle your homeworld for this subversion. We didn't launch an army, Chen replied, setting her mug down on the bare desk behind her. We didn't issue a threat. We sent a bill, and now you are going to pay it. She touched a small control pad on her desk, and Zyler's personal terminal flashed with 3 non-negotiable terms written in plain English. The first term demanded the immediate evacuation of all Valeri forces from Sector 4. The second term established an absolute exclusion zone around all human resource worlds. The third term required the total dismantlement of the automated border outposts at Vector 11 Delta. You have 1,200 capital ships targeting this tower, Zyler said, trying to force authority into his vocal synthesizer. If you command them to fire, you destroy the primary shipyard of this sector. You will gain nothing but a field of debris. We don't need to fire, Chen said, her eyes narrowing slightly as she leaned toward the pickup. The ships are already executing their new defensive instructions. If your central core attempts to transmit an Imperial authorization code within the next 72 minutes, the fleet will clear the lane, just like you did. Zyler looked past the screen, out into the ring of silent, giant vessels. The long, narrow weapon lances were perfectly aligned with his position, their energy cores humming with a low, rhythmic vibration that shook the structural supports of the tower. The ancient algorithmic certainty that had guided his empire for 40 centuries had left no parameters for an enemy that chose to win by waiting. The crystal signet ring slipped from his digit, clattering loudly against the unresponsive metal console before rolling into the dark crevice beneath the terminal base. Zyler did not reach for it. He pressed his upper right palm against the emergency biometric pad, confirming the digital signature that authorized the immediate execution of the exclusion treaty. Across the screen, Admiral Elena Chen picked up her gray ceramic mug, took one final sip, and cut the transmission. The white light of the interface vanished, leaving the bridge in the dim, gray illumination of the distant star. 6 months later, the deep history vaults beneath the capital world were cold and smelled of recycled air. Zyler sat at a low, stone desk, his bare carapaced fingers typing slowly into an archive ledger that had not been updated in a century. His ceremonial silver ropes were gone, replaced by the simple gray tunic of a low-tier scribe. Across the sector, the automated shipyards were empty, and the border outposts had been reduced to floating pieces of scrap metal. He paused, looking at the small, gray screen of his logging terminal. He did not write about fleet sizes, and he did not log the technical specifications of the data payload that had broken his career. He entered a single, final entry for the next generation of administrators to read before they checked the borders. Do not provoke the quiet ones. They keep their word, and their patience is an execution sentence that you will not see coming until the lights go out. They will wait years in the dark until they own the very air inside your home. Zyler closed the terminal interface. The small display flickered once, turned gray, and stayed blank.